everyone. We're back today with another interview. Today, we're very lucky to have Scott Francis here. He is the Vice President of Strategic Accounts at Ethos. So thank you so much, Scott, for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Katie.
Of course. So to get things started, can you just give us a brief summary of your career and your current role?
Yeah, definitely. So proud University of Iowa graduate here, go Hawks. Right out of college, I was with Enterprise Rent-A-Car for about 7 years, which was a very interesting experience. You learn a lot. And it was my first experience really getting into the claims world and understanding insurance. A lot of the rentals that we did were insurance replacement rentals where the insurance company would have somebody on site like an adjuster working directly with the policyholder or the claimant. And so we were part of that process of how does somebody react when they have something unfortunate happen in their life, and what role does the insurance company play in getting them back to where they were prior to the loss. And so that was my first kind of understanding of how insurance works in the real world and how they react when something happens. And I was fascinated by it. And fast forward a few years, I was there for about 7 years. I got recruited into more central to the insurance industry on the service provider side. And so for the last about 10 years, I've been working with various insurance companies, TPAs, law firms, and all sorts of claims organizations on improving their workflow, streamlining their process, and really getting better claims outcomes, particularly on injury claims. And so for me, it's been awesome. I've had the good fortune to work with a lot of amazing individuals. I've been in a lot of different roles, both on as an individual contributor as well as in a management role, building, developing teams, and really fostering a lot of people and setting them up for success in their careers, which to me personally has been incredibly rewarding. And I had a lot of people early on, before I really knew what I wanted to do, help me out and invest in me and help me hone my skills and develop that career path that I'm enjoying today. So being in a position to be able to help those folks is extremely rewarding for me. So what I do today, I head up a service line for Ethos Risk Services, and then also manage a number of our large national account relationships, like I said, with carriers, TPAs, and some different entities in the space.
Great. So a lot of what you do is kind of helping foster almost like an educational type role where you're helping teach and improve skill sets and certain lines of business and how they run.
Definitely. It's the technical piece on what adjusters and folks are actually doing on a day-to-day basis. But then there's a lot of soft skills that go into that, right? When you talk about professional development, industry organizations where you can give back, right? Have conversations with folks like yourself and others where it's really geared around how do we help folks that are coming up in their careers and give them access to people, resources, and information that are going to make them a better professional.
Great. And that's kind of what we weave into here, talking about mentorship, because I know you have a large role in a lot of mentorship programs, and that's something you're really passionate about. So can you talk a little bit about what mentorship means to you and why it's so important, especially in insurance?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, very passionate about this topic. I came out of college. I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so I didn't know what planning a career path or developing a professional career path really looked like. And I was very fortunate early on in a number of different roles and several different companies to have people, like I said, invest in me and help me kind of figure out how do I get really good at what I want to do? How do I figure out what I want to do, right? And then find the right place where I can flourish. And so as I went in my career, one of the things that I gravitated to was people that took the time to invest, right? And I looked at them and I said, you have a career path that I would like to emulate, or you have characteristics that I admire and I want to weave into who I am as a person as I continue to grow and develop. And so seeking out those people and in some cases getting connected with them through mutual contacts was invaluable for me in my professional development. Helped me figure out how do I go from point A to point B? How do I do things as simple as walking into a meeting and presenting? How do I do that as well as I possibly can to set myself up for success? And so having experienced it from that side and seeing how tremendously valuable it is to have somebody who's a mentor who's invested in you help you in your career. When I got to a point in my career where I was able to give back and share some of my guidance with folks that were earlier on, it was one of the things that I felt like I had to do. And the more people you talk to and help in different situations, whether it's an informal program, it's incredibly fulfilling in a way that not a lot of things in your career are, right? There's so many things that we do on a day-to-day basis, and accomplishing career goals, landing deals or programs that you kick off, things like that are incredibly rewarding, and you're helping your client and all that stuff. But similarly, but also different, when you help an individual accomplish some of their goals or develop as a professional or land their dream job or get a promotion and things like that, it's just incredibly rewarding and incredibly fulfilling in a completely different way. And so I love that piece of it, because you're able to see people get from where they are to where they want to go and be a small part in helping them accomplish some of those things.
It's almost like a more personal level. You see almost a version of yourself of where you started, and you get to help that person get to their next steps too. So it's kind of a looking backwards to move someone forward.
Absolutely. And the other point of your question around why is that important in insurance, right? We're at a super interesting time right now in the insurance industry. We have a lot of knowledge and experience walking out the door by way of retirement, right? With a lot of the folks that are towards the end of their career. And we don't have that same number of people in the early stages of their career, right? So it's the talent gap that we all know is coming, and we're starting to experience it. And so anything that we can do to prepare that next generation for leadership roles, management roles, getting them to be more rounded professional so that when they step into those roles, they're ready for it, right? And they can handle the different levels of responsibility is going to be critical for what this industry looks like over the next 10 to 15 years.
Definitely. It's a crucial time, as you said, very important, lots of things happening, and you got to be ready for it.
Absolutely.
And with regards to, you were saying when you got to a point where you were able to give back, can you talk a bit more about, is there a certain time that you would say you were ready to be a mentor? When did you know that you could take on that role?
Yeah, it's kind of funny, right? I think people have this idea of mentors being people that are just about ready to retire. They've seen it all, been through everything you could possibly imagine in your career. And that's when you're ready to be a mentor, right? You have to check those boxes. And I don't think that that's totally accurate. For me, when I realized that I was in a position to share some experience and knowledge that people could benefit from, was probably when I was, I'd say, late 20s, and younger folks, earlier career folks started coming to me and asking me for advice, right? And had questions about how to navigate different situations and things like that. And it kind of opened my eyes to think, well, maybe I actually do know a few things that people can benefit from. And so I would say folks that have enough experience and have dealt with enough situations where they can impart some of what they've learned to other people, they're in a position to be a mentor, no doubt. Because if it doesn't have to be this structured thing where you have 40 years of experience and then you're qualified, right? It's, hey, I've been through it, and I know some of the ways that you can navigate that stage of your career. And I'm happy to share what I learned with you. And hopefully through that communication, it sets you up for a more successful, whether it's an individual situation or just kind of soft skill development throughout someone's career. So I would say anybody who's been on that and has something valuable to share from that experience is in a position to be a mentor.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. And I think there's almost this scary aspect of mentorship. I'm really sure how to get started or who to ask, what to say. And that's another thing that I noticed recently is people have been talking a lot about getting quote unquote ghosted by their mentor. And it's one of those things of, I think because it's a lot of forced relationships too, that maybe are the reason that it doesn't work out. But when you have people coming to you and you see, I have something to share, there's people coming to you that are interested in what you have to say, then that's a good time to foster a more natural mentorship relationship.
I think it's a really good point too that you just made. And I think it speaks, there needs to be some level of quality in the interactions, right? Let's say if you and I have a mentor-mentee relationship and we just have something on the calendar and we not really are bringing anything to it, right? And we just meet every month at this time without a real goal or a topic to dig into, it's probably not going to be that productive, right?
Yeah.
But what I always like to encourage people to do when they're developing mentors in their careers is you have to come with an ask, right? So when you get on the phone or meet with your mentor, you want to guide the conversation into what you're looking to get out of it. And that's going to help the mentor contribute to you, right? If somebody calls a senior level person up every month and says, "Hey, how's it going? Just want to chat for a few minutes." It's not going to be the type of dialogue that really propels someone forward. And I think over time, if you're a busy professional, as everybody is, those conversations kind of wane, right? And it naturally peters out. But if you have more of a direct thing that you're trying to get out of those conversations or contribute to those conversations, I think it leads itself to more of a productive, ongoing conversation between those two.
That's a great point. I love the thing that you said, come with a topic, come with something to talk about. That's definitely a great tool to use to guide the conversation. And also talking a little bit more about mentorship, is there maybe a personal experience, a moment that you had, whether a mentor or as a mentee, that really stuck out to you as having a significant impact on maybe either your personal life, your career, both?
One comes to mind, and it's funny. So I had one of my mentors who was one of the most intense people I've ever met in my life, in a usually good way. She was a C-level. She was our chief operating officer at a previous company I worked at. So I reported to her directly part of the time and indirectly another part of the time, depending on the roles I was in. And one of the things that I would always go to her for, and this is somebody who has run major organizations, has been in the room when stuff happens with very large companies, so unflappable, right? Impeccable presenter, wonderful executive presence, just like a very well polished professional. And I would meet with her and I would talk about what I had going on and big meetings I had coming up or presentations or things like that. And she would start asking questions. And I would have the answers, and then she would ask more, and then she'd ask follow-up questions. And she was really drilling into every aspect of what I was talking about, who I was presenting to, what the topic was. And it would drive me nuts. The first couple times she did it, I was just exhausted and frustrated. And I'm like, why are you doing this to me? And so this is me as a mentee, right? What I came to realize is she was teaching me how to be the most prepared person in the room for every situation I was ever going to be in, right? So over time, I knew she was going to ask those questions. I knew she was going to dig in. And so I took it upon myself to get my preparation to a level where nothing was going to surprise me, right? And I was ready for everything. I understood the perspectives of everybody in the room. And once we started having those conversations, she would get the smile on her face and just start nodding because she knew I got it, right?
Yeah.
And so what's funny about that is now in the role that I'm in, I have a lot of people that reach out to me in my organization, outside of my organization, as part of industry associations when they have something big coming up or they're preparing for something, right? And so they start telling me about the situation, and naturally, I start peppering them with questions, and I'm digging in and I'm asking follow-ups. It's like, have you thought about this? What about that? And the same thing, right? They're getting frustrated, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and they're like, oh, I need to spend more time so that I'm ready for all of this stuff. And by the end of whatever we're preparing for, whatever I'm helping them with, you can see it on their face that they're more comfortable, they're more confident, they know the topic inside and out, they're prepared, and they're ready to present, and they feel better about it, right? And so it's, for me, that was kind of a very important part of my career and a key learning, because you can't replace good preparation. But also it was a tremendous tool in learning how to teach and develop people, whether it's colleagues or, like I said, folks outside my organization, on the importance of preparation, presenting, and just being ready for anything.
Wow, that's something that I'm sure you'll never forget. As long
Never.
as even in day-to-day life, that's an important skill. So that's great. You had some things that resonated so much with you that now you can pass it on to all these upcoming new professionals, so on and so forth. That's great. And to wrap us up, can you share maybe a piece of advice, something that you would like to tell maybe someone thinking about entering insurance, that's maybe they're overwhelmed by what insurance is, anything that you would give to someone kind of entering?
I think, broadly speaking, when you're getting your career started, and particularly this hits home in insurance where it is really a small industry, one of the best things and most valuable things you can do is grow your network and develop meaningful relationships with people, and particularly folks that I mentioned earlier, seeing people in a career and admiring who they are and what they've done, right? You want to surround yourself with successful people. You want to figure out how they got where they are. And there's things that you can learn from every person you interact with, right? And that's kind of how you develop who you are as a professional, where you sit, where you fit, all of that kind of stuff. And so you do that by growing your network and helping people, right? And making those connections. And I got to say, one of the groups that I've worked with for years now that is just does a phenomenal job of this and is amazing for early career professionals is Rise Professionals. They have a formal mentor program that I've done for a couple of years now. But more than that, they're a tremendous resource for network building and developing a lot of those personal development, soft skills, human skills that help you any stage of your career. And so I'd say number one is grow your network, invest the time to build those relationships and nurture them, because you want to get to know people that you're going to be working with or adjacent to for the next 20 years, whatever the case may be, because you never know when somebody's going to be looking for a job and you can help them out, or somebody's going to need a new partner for something, right? And you guys can work together on that stuff. So that's critical. I also think when you think about your own organization, let's take somebody who's in the insurance industry, right? Career advice for them would be become known in your organization as somebody who is willing to contribute and somebody who accomplishes things. And what I mean by that is I talk to a lot of executives in the insurance space, and one of the things that they see as a major green flag for professionals is when they're willing to raise their hand and work cross-functionally with other departments or take on a new task that's maybe something that is a little bit different for the department, try out a new technology. Maybe it's a claims professional working with somebody in underwriting about a new process where they're trying to figure out a better way to do things. And the folks that raise their hand and are able to move around and work with people know their name, right? They're part of a project that gets presented on a slide in front of a bunch of executives. And so there's some recognition there that this person's investing in the company. They are flexible. They want to be part of something new. And so that's a great way to do it, is you raise your hand for those different opportunities and then embrace the folks that you meet along the way, right? And you continue those conversations, those connections throughout your career. So then when a promotion opportunity comes up, right, and Katie throws her name in the ring, everybody already knows who Katie is, right? She has a personal brand within that organization that people trust and people know, hey, this is somebody who is invested, they get stuff done, they work with other people well, people respect their work product. So you're well positioned going into any opportunities that come up down the road. And then I think the final piece of advice is something that's easy to say and hard to execute. And that is invest in your professional development, never stop learning. Warren Buffett has a great quote where he talks about doing 5 hours a day of learning, whether it's reading something over your lunch break, taking articles and getting accreditations, taking courses, whatever it is to become an expert in your space. And then you can share that knowledge with others in the industry, others in your company. Right? It might be something as simple as you're keeping up with trends and it triggers something. You have a great idea and you bring it up in your next team meeting and your manager looks at you and says, you're really thinking about this like a leader of the business, right? Those are things that you want to do to continue to hone your craft and become an expert and contribute in meaningful ways. And I think when you do those things, you grow your network, you become known in your organization, and you continue to develop yourself as an expert, you position yourself extremely well for any future opportunities, either inside or outside of the organization that you're in.
Those are all great tips and honestly things that I think people maybe think about but don't say out loud. Putting them all together like that and the recipe to success or to getting started. It's a great way to splice it up and put it together. So I really appreciate you talking about that.
Absolutely.
And also, I love that you mentioned Rise because we did want to talk about that as well. So it's a great organization, lots of good things coming out of Rise. So I love that you brought that up as well.
And it's free to join. The resources are available, riseprofessionals.com. I would highly recommend anybody at any level in the insurance industry or somebody that's interested in insurance to check that out.
Absolutely. And thank you so much, Scott, for talking with me today. This was great. So I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Katie.